Hey kids, today's video, I am titling it, the more you know, the less you probably do. Yeah, I want to talk about one of the things that really changed the way I think and I think of myself. It's really that we probably know far less than we think we know, especially if we are confident that we know a lot about something and that actually it's okay not to know and it's okay to admit that you don't know. So I want to give you a quick illustration of what I'm talking about. For many things that we studied or practiced, it's like a little area of light. We can see it and we make some conclusions as to what it is. But as we see so little of it, we actually don't know what the thing might be. A good story is about I think it was called Seven Blind Mice. Each of them go to an elephant and try to figure out what part is what. And you can look up the story and read about it. It's a short story, but it says a lot. And so when we walk back and widen the light a bit, we can see more of what it is. And then we might be able to better gauge what this is and how much we know about it. And as we go further and further, the more we get to know. But actually, I think as we get to know more, we actually realize how little we actually understood about this, and we get a sense of how big this is, or how big something is, to get to know, how little we know about it. And so funny enough, when people know so little about a subject, it's often easy to make the mistake that they know much more than they do. This is a psychological phenomenon of illusory superiority, or it's better known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. And lots of people have written about this. Lots of people have made videos about this. And so, yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail, but for me personally, I found the more I studied something, the less confident I became in what I know. And I think this is true of many things, since I'll not be reaching the level of an expert in many fields. Let me give you an example. Your dad grew up in the church. I've heard hundreds, if not thousands, of sermons growing up, and reading much of the Bible, and even read the whole thing 2 or 3 times. This made me feel quite confident that I had the whole Bible thing figured out. It made me confident that I knew who God was and what this whole Christianity thing was about. And I was able to throw this and that verse depending on the situation that required it. And I could give people biblical advice on what to do in certain situations, and what I felt like what was God's will depending, on the circumstance. But man, was I wrong? After spending 7 years or so studying the Bible a little bit more in depth, including history, biblical scholarship, science, human nature, things like neuroscience, I'm now pretty sure what I had believed for most of my life was incorrect, and that I actually understand very little, and therefore my confidence about what I knew is now just no longer there. It doesn't matter if you've heard something your entire life, that something might not be correct, and you're going to try to live by it. It's a good idea to try to get a better idea of what it is. But I don't think most people do, because they feel like they know it so well, they actually don't bother, and they're very lazy about it. So, I don't know what things are going to be like for you when you're 20, 30, or 40, but, I have a feeling people won't be too drastically different then. So when you see people on the news, just regular people, arguing with doctors and scientists as if they know better, you can be pretty sure that they actually know so little that they're just completely ignorant of the facts, and they know nothing. And because they know nothing, they're extremely confident to be able to try to argue with scientists. And the funny thing is, because scientists generally know about how much they don't know, their answers actually sound a little bit, more inconfident. And so it makes it sound like they're a bit more ignorant than the actual ignorant person. So when there is something where most of the scientific community has agreed on it, and you feel differently about it, then you should at least entertain that idea. That it's because likely you don't actually know much about it. The main examples that come to mind are people who refuse to vaccinate their kids despite numerous studies done on the subject. There are of course those who deny climate change. Recently there are people who think that the illness that's going around is some ploy by the Democratic Party to make sure the current president doesn't stay in the office. And what also plays into this is just natural human tendencies to attribute an equal amount of force behind a specific event that has a certain amount of consequence, right? It's almost as if like Newton's laws of motion are applied to events that are happening in our heads. So it's it feels like it's common sense to assume that if you move a small rock a bit, a small force is applied, and when a large boulder is moved, that it took a great amount of force. And we actually naturally apply this concept for events that we experience or witness in life. For example, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, many people just couldn't believe that history could be changed by a lone gunman, right? And so, which is why conspiracy theories about it and just had to emerge. It was natural that this would happen because they assumed for something that had changed history so much to happen, there had to have been an equal amount of large force behind it. And so, before understanding how like lightning occurs, people assume that there must be a god behind it, right? Which they saw as an equal force behind the event, even attributing anger to the lightning. So you see, when this impulse to attribute one thing to another is applied without trying to understand what's actually happening, you get things like anti-vaxxers, you get things like climate change deniers, and people who believe that the latest illness is fake, and they're none the wiser about it. So it seems like to me that many of these people who claim to be Christian, are kind of part of this. And of course, I don't have the exact stats, but I have a feeling that much of this has to do with being told in the church since childhood that the world and Satan are trying to fool you. The scientists are unreliable because it doesn't align with how the world was created, in the Genesis account. Or as someone who grew up hearing this, I can't think that this upbringing and this attitude towards science that a lot of these science deniers have are unrelated. But I can't really say with certainty, but I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is why it's really important to be humble about what you actually know and be open to learning something new. When I was growing up, there were times I pretended to know more about a subject than I did. Mainly I felt a little bit embarrassed that I didn't know about it. Like I felt like I had to know everything. It wasn't stated outright, but I grew up believing that I had to be self-sufficient, competent in all things, and somehow all-knowing. So, kids, I just want to tell you, it's okay to not know or know less than somebody else. And if you know less than somebody else, you can learn from them. That's great. It's okay to be lost, and it's okay to need help. This is something I also struggled with. I like to help people, but often I don't like receiving help because it makes me feel less competent. But I find that, we really need to help each other as people. And it's okay not to be competent in everything. I really like to be good at things and I like to be good at everything. And I also like to think that I'm good at everything that I want to be good at. And then I say, well, I'm not good at that because I just haven't tried, right? And maybe that's true, but it's okay for me to not be competent in everything. It's okay, and I can admit it without shame. And it's okay to not have everything figured out or have an answer for everything. This happens all the time, right? When you're a child, people ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and like as if you have to know already by the time you're 7 years old what you want to be. And when you're graduating high school, they ask you what you want to major in when you go to college or what you want to do after high school. And in all these phases, it's okay. And it's okay to figure things out as they go. I feel like if you're stuck in one answer, I guess it could be good and it could end up with good things, but often maybe you end up exploring less and you end up learning less. I definitely feel like that was the case for me. There were so many interesting things that in the world that I just did not know about because I had never bothered to explore. So if you don't know but want to know, you can study. Just be cautious of studying in order to confirm what you know, right? This happens a lot because sometimes when you end up studying in one direction, you might fall into other people's bias and form these biases on your own without even realizing it, and you just end up studying things to make yourself feel better. I kind of make it a point to try to research multiple sides of an argument to try to get a better understanding of the subject myself. And, although I can't be sure about exactly, exactly which side is 100% right, and sometimes maybe there isn't a 100% right side and they just have some theories about it or hypotheses. But at least I get a better understanding of what other people are thinking, and it also helps me form an opinion myself. And if you're lost and you need help, you can ask for directions, you can ask for guidance. Just be cautious of something becoming your crutch, right? So that like you're not constantly getting help so you can no longer do without it. And if you're incompetent at something and you want to get better, just practice it. Look up tutorials, read books, and take courses to learn it. Sometimes just going out to try it over and over will help you become better at it. For example, I bought my first digital camera, I think in 2010 or 2011 maybe, and I didn't know how to use it. But after taking hundreds of thousands of photos, I'm pretty competent at it now. So yeah, and if you don't have everything figured out, just take comfort in the fact that you actually never will. I don't mean to, I don't mean like don't try, but your answers will also change over time. So, continue to ask yourself questions and seek answers. Yeah, so I want to recommend two books for you. The first book is called You Are Not So Smart, Why You Have Too Many Friends on Facebook, Why Your Memory is Mostly Fiction, and 46 Ways You're Deluding Yourself. So maybe by the time you watch this video, there will be other books similar to this, but I think at least as of this recording, this is a great book just to get an overview on the ways that you're not viewing reality correctly, I guess. Yeah, so it was a really good book, and it gave me a great oversight into how to think a little bit more critically. And it's really insightful and it's easy to understand. The next book I want to introduce you to is this has a bit more information, and there's some things that might go over your head a bit more. But this book is called Behave: The Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst. Yeah, and so both of these books really have helped me realize a lot about myself and human nature, and I hope it helps you as well. If you're watching this, maybe 10, 15 years after this video I've recorded, right? As I said, there may be different books, but I really believe that these books will still be even relevant then. And so that's all for this week, kids. And I think, you viewing this video and reading these books, maybe in your teens, would be very helpful and also help you kind of navigate through life as well. So, yeah, as I said, yeah, kids, I love you. And yeah, I look forward to our next talk next week. Okay, bye.